Blake is really warm. She really asks a lot of beautiful questions. She's very caring and willing to share.
Blake Lively was once universally celebrated as the quintessential Hollywood it girl and half of an idealized celebrity marriage. But the public now heavily brands her as a mean girl and a fake victim. The ultimate destruction of her carefully curated image occurred when her It Ends With Us co-star Jenny Slate broke her silence for the very first time, publicly corroborating the toxic environment Lively deliberately created on set. This unprecedented testimony aligned directly with a devastating legal ruling in April 2026, which saw a federal judge decisively dismiss 10 of Lively's 13 severe claims against Justin Baldoni, including sexual harassment and defamation. Ultimately, this entire controversy exposes Lively not as a legitimate #MeToo survivor, but as a prime example of unchecked arrogance, immense power abuse, and failed media manipulation that triggered an unprecedented organic backlash. The mean girl pattern. The widespread public outrage directed at Blake Lively during her legal battle with Justin Baldoni was not a spontaneous or isolated reaction, but rather an inevitable consequence built upon a solid foundation of insensitive, arrogant, and unempathetic behavior that has been documented for years. These were not mere unsubstantiated rumors, but a consistent pattern of conduct and public statements that painted a clear picture of her character, making it easier for the public to believe she was the antagonist in her latest and most public conflict. This pattern of behavior can be traced back to the height of her fame during the Gossip Girl era. While she portrayed the charming and friendly Serena van der Woodsen on screen, numerous sources from the set described a starkly different reality. Persistent rumors of a strained relationship with her co-star Leighton Meester, who played Blair Waldorf, began circulating as early as 2008. New York Magazine reported that the two lead actresses avoid each other like the plague, a sentiment later confirmed in a more diplomatic tone by the show's executive producer, Joshua Safran, who stated they were friendly but not friends. The friction was often attributed to their contrasting personalities, with Lively being the outgoing center of attention, while Meester was more introverted and private. However, the issues appeared to run deeper than simple personality clashes. In 2025, a former crew member from Gossip Girl came forward to describe Lively as a bully and a classic high school mean girl. This individual, a man named Ewood, who worked as a volunteer runner when the show was filming in Paris in 2010, recounted a deeply unpleasant experience. He claimed that Lively completely ignored his greetings, acting as if I didn't exist, and treated him with a passive-aggressive form of disrespect, making jokes at his expense. He further alleged that she spoke to crew members in a condescending manner, as if they were toddlers and would cause a scene if her demands were not met. This behavior stood in sharp contrast to that of Leighton Meester, who he described as consistently kind and willing to engage with fans. This narrative of on-set entitlement and unprofessionalism was the first significant crack in her public facade. Lively's perceived insensitivity was put on full display in 2012 when she and Ryan Reynolds chose to hold their wedding at Boone Hall, a former plantation in South Carolina. While the venue was visually stunning, it carried the dark and painful history of slavery, with 9 original slave cabins still standing on the property as a preservation effort. The decision to celebrate their union in a location so deeply connected to a legacy of human suffering was met with fierce criticism, with many accusing the couple of romanticizing a horrific chapter of American history. Although they later issued a profound apology, calling the choice a giant mistake and donating $200,000 to racial justice organizations, the stain of this culturally insensitive decision has remained an indelible part of their public story. In 2016, as the hashtag #MeToo movement was gaining momentum and empowering victims of abuse to speak out, Blake Lively once again found herself on the wrong side of public sentiment by publicly defending director Woody Allen, who has long been accused of sexual abuse by his adopted daughter, Dylan Farrow. In an interview with the Los Angeles Times, Lively praised Allen, with whom she had worked on the film Cafe Society, as being empowering to women. She elaborated by stating, "It's dangerous to factor in things you don't know anything about. I can only speak to my experience, and my experience with Woody is that he's empowering to women." This statement provoked a wave of anger, as critics argued she was dismissively prioritizing her own positive professional experience over the serious and credible allegations of a potential victim, thereby undermining the very principle of believing survivors. Compounding these major incidents, a series of older interviews resurfaced, further solidifying the negative perception of her character. One of the most notable examples was a 2016 interview with Norwegian journalist Kjersti Flay A. When Flay A began by congratulating Lively on her pregnancy, Lively responded with open annoyance and sarcasm. Later, when the journalist shifted the topic to the costumes in her film, Lively grew even more irritable, retorting, "Everybody wants to talk about the clothes, but I'm wondering if they ask the men about the clothes." Flaw later described the encounter as the most uncomfortable interview situation she had ever been in, one that made her want to quit her job. These individual pieces, the alleged on-set arrogance, the cultural insensitivity of her wedding, her defense of a controversial figure, and her rude treatment of the press, collectively formed a consistent and troubling pattern. They painted a portrait of a star who was entitled, lacked empathy, and was disconnected from the world outside her privileged bubble. This pre-existing negative foundation meant that when the "It Ends With Us" drama erupted, the public was already primed to view her not as a victim, but as the aggressor. The "It Ends With Us" drama. If the events of the past were the hairline fractures in Blake Lively's pristine public image, the entire production and promotion of the film "It Ends With Us" was the sledgehammer that shattered it completely. This chapter stands as the longest and most bitter in her career, a period where her alleged arrogance reached its peak, leading to a comprehensive and humiliating failure on both the public relations and legal fronts. The turmoil began during the film's production, where Blake Lively, serving in the dual capacity of lead actress and producer, was accused of orchestrating a hostile takeover of the project. According to legal documents and insiders from the production, Lively leveraged her significant power to force drastic rewrites of the script. More contentiously, her husband, Ryan Reynolds, reportedly became directly involved, rewriting pivotal scenes without the approval or involvement of the film's official screenwriter, Christy Hall. In his subsequent lawsuit, Justin Baldoni alleged that Lively demanded the opportunity to try a pass at rewriting the iconic rooftop scene from the novel. When Baldoni expressed hesitation, Lively was said to have used the influence of her famous friends, including the global superstar Taylor Swift, to pressure him into compliance. This deep and unsolicited intervention by the Lively-Reynolds couple fostered a toxic and difficult working environment. A key member of the production team, storyboard artist Talia Spencer, publicly sided with Baldoni, stating that Lively had mistaken his kindness for weakness and tried to use it to usurp power. Spencer asserted that the final version of the film bore little resemblance to Baldoni's original artistic vision. The internal conflict escalated to the point where two separate edits of the film were being developed simultaneously, one by Baldoni and the official post-production team, and another secret version commissioned by Lively, who had replaced the film's editors with her own team. The situation devolved into such chaos that in later leaked internal emails from Sony Pictures, Chairman Tom Rothman was quoted as describing the entire affair as a filing disaster. Another top executive, Andrea Giannetti, went even further, calling Lively a fringe terrorist after she allegedly threatened to walk away from the project unless a list of 17 demands was met. This same sense of entitlement and arrogance carried over into the film's promotional tour in August 2024. It Ends With Us is a story that deals with the profoundly serious and sensitive issue of domestic violence, a subject that requires a delicate and respectful approach. Blake Lively, however, promoted the film with a stunning degree of tone deafness. Instead of focusing on the film's important message, she consistently redirected conversations to her floral dresses, used press junkets to promote her newly launched hair care brand, and encouraged audiences to grab your friends and wear florals to the theater. This approach was widely condemned as shallow, disrespectful to survivors of domestic violence, and an attempt to commercialize a painful human experience into a frivolous fashion event. A powerful and organic wave of public backlash erupted at this point, long before any alleged smear campaign could have been initiated. As public opinion turned sharply against her, Blake Lively played what she must have believed was her trump card. In December 2024, she filed a lawsuit against Justin Baldoni, accusing him of a litany of offenses, including sexual harassment, fat-shaming, and the non-consensual addition of sexually explicit scenes to the film. The narrative put forth was that the powerful Lively Reynolds couple were the victims, fighting back against a co-star who had overstepped his bounds. They were accused of using their immense Hollywood influence not only to seize creative control of the film, but also to systematically destroy Baldoni's reputation. However, this aggressive legal maneuver quickly began to backfire as the truth started to emerge. Justin Baldoni refused to be a silent victim. He launched a countersuit for defamation and extortion. Although his massive $400 million lawsuit was ultimately dismissed in June 2025, the legal discovery process it initiated was strategically brilliant. It forced the unsealing of numerous private text messages and emails, which painted a damning picture of bullying, backstabbing, and manipulative behavior originating from Lively and her team. The final decisive blow came in April 2026. Federal Judge Louis Lyman dismissed the vast majority of Lively's claims against Baldoni, including the most serious and reputation-damaging allegations of sexual harassment, defamation, and conspiracy. The judge's reasoning was based on a crucial legal technicality. As an independent contractor and a high-level producer on the film, Blake Lively was not considered an employee under the law, and therefore, workplace harassment statutes did not apply to her case. This ruling effectively stripped her of the hashtag #MeTooVictim shield she had so publicly brandished. All that remained were a few minor claims related to retaliation and breach of contract, which were not directly aimed at Baldoni as an individual. The outcome was a stunning reversal of fortunes. Justin Baldoni, who had been cast as the villain, emerged legally and publicly vindicated. Blake Lively, the A-list star, was exposed as someone willing to weaponize a vital social movement to conceal what were, at their core, creative conflicts and a clash of egos. The It Ends With Us saga concluded not with a victory for a victim, but with the public implosion of a star, buried under the weight of her own perceived arrogance. The unprecedented backlash. The series of actions taken by Blake Lively throughout the It Ends With Us controversy produced an inevitable and severe consequence. A wave of public anger and disdain more powerful than anything she had ever faced in her career. This storm of negativity was not the manufactured result of a public relations campaign orchestrated by Justin Baldoni's camp. It was a purely organic backlash, initially sparked by her tone-deaf promotional tactics and fanned into an inferno by her subsequent legal actions, which were widely perceived as manipulative and abusive. The public's unease, which began during the August 2024 press tour, metastasized into genuine fury when the lawsuit was filed in December and intensified as internal Sony emails and private messages were made public. Public opinion fractured, but the faction opposing Blake Lively was overwhelmingly dominant. Online forums like Reddit and X, formerly Twitter, were flooded with comments branding her a high school bully, an entitled celebrity, and a fake feminist. The leaked text exchanges between her and her close friend Taylor Swift, in which they appeared to strategize about taking control of the film, led to both of them being labeled as real-life mean girls by a segment of the public. This catastrophic collapse of her public image had a direct and damaging impact on Blake Lively's career. While It Ends With Us still managed to achieve commercial success, her personal brand and reputation were left in tatters. Rumors began to circulate online that her next major project, the sequel to the hit film A Simple Favor, had been indefinitely shelved due to the legal turmoil. Although the film's director, Paul Feig, quickly refuted these claims as complete nonsense and assured the public that the movie was still on track, the very fact that such rumors could gain traction was a testament to the public's loss of faith in her. Reputation experts and entertainment lawyers commented that the shock to her personal brand was far more significant than any potential financial settlement. The leaked emails from Sony executive Sanford Panich were particularly telling. As he predicted, she will probably never work again, or at least for a while, and that she was currently unhireable. Even the formidable support system she possessed, including her powerful husband Ryan Reynolds and her superstar best friend Taylor Swift, proved incapable of staunching the reputational bleeding. Reynolds's involvement in the script rewrites and his steadfast support for his wife during the legal battle only served to reinforce the narrative that they were a power couple, abusing their collective influence. Taylor Swift's involvement, though revealed only through leaked messages, resulted in collateral damage to her own carefully curated image, raising uncomfortable questions about the authenticity of her feminist brand. In stark contrast to Blake Lively's downfall was the strengthening of Justin Baldoni's public image. Throughout the entire crisis, he and his legal team maintained a professional and patient demeanor. He wisely avoided engaging in public disputes on social media, instead focusing his efforts on the legal process and allowing the evidence to speak for itself. His countersuit, while legally unsuccessful, was a strategic masterstroke in reframing the narrative and demonstrating his resolve to defend his reputation. He garnered support from other crew members and was widely praised by the public as a class act who handled a targeted and vicious attack with grace and integrity. This stark contrast only served to make Blake Lively's behavior appear even more egregious in the eyes of the public. The firestorm of outrage was more than just a passing media crisis. It was a final judgment from the public on a star who they believed had lost her way, sacrificing authenticity and integrity at the altar of her own ego. The inescapable price of arrogance. The tumultuous and highly public legal drama surrounding It Ends With Us has reached an unambiguous conclusion. Blake Lively was not the victim she claimed to be. Instead, she has become a cautionary tale, a prominent example of a Hollywood star who misused her immense power, demonstrated a profound lack of self-awareness, and was willing to deploy powerful media and legal tools to denigrate a colleague when her ego was challenged. The entire sequence of events, from the aggressive takeover of the film's production and the astonishingly tone-deaf promotional campaign to the cynical weaponization of the #MeToo movement, has painted an undeniable portrait of unchecked arrogance. This saga also serves as a potent warning to the powerful elite in Hollywood. It demonstrates that today's public, Armed with the instantaneous and democratizing force of social media and access to a multitude of information sources, is no longer so easily fooled by carefully constructed narratives of victimhood. The audience has shown its ability to connect the dots, recognize patterns of behavior, and form its own powerful and resonant judgments. While further legal proceedings may continue, with an appeal set for May 2026, potentially unearthing even more uncomfortable truths, the verdict in the court of public opinion has already been delivered, and it is a decisive one. Blake Lively once dreamed of reigning as Hollywood's queen, an adored and respected icon. Now, as a direct consequence of her own actions, she is left with a tarnished legacy, standing as a symbol of a spectacular downfall. A collapse fueled entirely by her own arrogance and a profound and disappointing lack of authenticity.